Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So last week we had a visitor from Olympia. We had Senator Karen Frazier with us, and she spoke about integrity in government. And she it was her first time to speak about it, but she gave us a very, very nice outline and a discussion about the exercise of integrity in various aspects of government, and she explained some of the legislative process to us, which was helpful and interesting and so forth. So I want to talk tonight again about integrity, not because she didn't cover it, but we weren't expecting her to talk about Zen practice or the interiority of integrity. So I just want to draw that out a little bit further today. The word integrity, I don't remember what definition Senator Fraser gave us, but it means a wholeness, a sense of completeness within oneself, and a deep sense of honesty. We could say that also. But it's really the word completeness is its very good meaning. I think in the Latin or in the French it means entire. So we translate as completeness within oneself, that one feels there's nothing left over when one exercises integrity in some way. And there are many ways to exercise integrity. It gets a very early start in us, this sense of integrity, but certainly from a sense of practice. We come for many, many reasons, but very often people come because they have some sense of the transitory nature of life. Maybe somebody in their family has died, somebody close to them, or perhaps they've had some illness or something like that. All kinds of reasons, but the sense of the transitory nature of this life, which is very fast-moving, very quick, but a blink of an eye, not even that long in cosmic time frame. But we come for that sense, and something happens in us when we begin that search, or we have that nudge, that bodhicitta, that seed of awakening, is immediately exercised in us if we listen to that need. Of course, if we don't respond, that's another whole thing, but in a way, Roshi always referred to that. Instead of talking about it as integrity, he referred to it as disappointing yourself. I've spoken about that many times too. We disappoint ourselves when we don't respond to some call in us to go forward, or to listen, or to deepen ourselves, or to follow a particular path. So that seed of bodhicitta is awakened with that move to seek to awaken, to move toward enlightenment, or to try and think what enlightenment might even mean in this sense. And that very seed is right akin to integrity. Because how we respond is the exercise of integrity. How we respond to all those calls to come to Zazen. Cold night, it's a cold winter night out there, and so easy to stay home by the fire, or to just wrap ourselves in a blanket and not feel that voice. But at the same time, once we start on this cushion, once we come to Zazen and we begin to feel the maybe perhaps sacred nature of Zazen, or the particularity of it, we can't deny it anymore, because something is awakened in us, something nudges us. And the response is the exercise of integrity in us. That which responds to the call that which responds to our condition, to the condition to know ourselves. And mostly integrity is not particularly visible. Well, it's visible if you come and people see you here. But in the course of any day, we've got a continual flow of the exercise of integrity. How we care for our minds in the course of the day. What we pick up to read, what we do throughout the day. These are all about personal integrity and the development of the strength or the stamina of our spiritual dynamic. It's very, very easy to say no. And this voice keeps calling us to respond in some way. And very easy to not listen. It's so delicate a voice. It is so simple and so close to us that we almost don't see it, or we almost don't hear. And yet, this question of integrity is also the development of the teacher within. We all, it's true there's the student-teacher relationship, but it's there for each one of us to become the teacher of ourselves, for each one to develop as teacher of ourselves. And that really has a lot to do with this very subtle, quiet sense of integrity that is also a sense of care of ourselves. How we respond to the world and how we do in the world. It's also about this life. What should I do with my life? Sometimes we come because of that. There's some burgeoning question of, I'm dissatisfied with my life and I need to look around at something. I need to find something that is right. And this sense of integrity is also leading us to that. And how we respond to what we will do with this life is of great importance. And every time we don't respond, we just get a little bit, what's a good word? Don't want to say weaker, but it's sort of that. It just makes it easier to not respond the next time. Makes it easier not to listen. And I'm not saying that integrity should move into a moralistic kind of way of looking, or that we become so full of our own sense of integrity that we belittle anything else around us. I am not talking about that, because the real work of integrity is a very quiet working in us. It's very subtle working. It is not boastful. It is not pretentious. It's like the slow movement of nectar in a flower, something like that. It is very, very subtle. So when we are on the cushion, we are faced with this question of integrity in how we sit in every single moment, in how we listen to ourselves. And first of all, we enter the door and we come and we sit, and that is one kind of response to integrity. And the other is on the cushion, is whether we just throw away the 40 minutes by remembering our trip to Zanzibar, or something, remembering yesterday, or whether we exercise our presence and our time and our moment on the cushion. Life is so fleeting. It's so quick. And we can't call back. We can't call back those times when we turned away from the still small voice. I'm thinking about even another kind of integrity. These are all the same integrity. It's not different kinds of integrity actually, but it's the what is before us and how we spend our day. So today I wasted a great deal of time paying attention to news and Elizabeth Warren. And, nobody in Washington gives a rat's fingernail about my worrying about Elizabeth Warren, busying myself with the responses to the Elizabeth Warren business. And, many times I thought, I really could be doing something else. This is not a good thing to be doing. And yet, we succumb to these temptations, we could call it that. It wasn't anything sinful that I was doing, so I don't want to relate temptation to sin in any way, shape, or form. It's not what it is. It's a question of how I spend this precious life. And we, when we engage in that news stuff right now, we are told so often, well, we're in danger. Country's in danger. Some people tell us that. And yet, the true danger is in ourselves. No danger out there, honest to goodness. There's nothing we could do about it anyway. There is no danger. But the danger is within us. And the danger is that we will not respond with integrity to this life, to paying attention and the care of this life, and how this life is lived. And when I suspect that almost everybody has been in danger sometime. When you are in a danger, when you are in a dangerous situation, you become very, very, very quiet. And you listen so closely to where you are. So in the fray of this mad voices that are rushing around in stuff that we really don't have to engage in, like me, can we become quiet enough, listen to that danger, and become silent enough to be able to realize the preciousness of this life, what is precious in this moment? And it is not 45. So we have so many challenges today in our practice. But because we invited Senator Fraser to talk about that, we can deepen ourselves in practice and go much deeper with the question of integrity and having it walk with us. First, the question of integrity begins in the absolute. It is the standing place from which we look out at the world. We stand in the world as Buddha, and we look at the world as Buddha. And the question of ethics or integrity begins in the absolute. We don't haul up all kinds of moralistic ideas about what either ethics or integrity are. They begin in the absolute. So it begins with our recognition of our own awakened mind. from there we live well. It's our pathway, it's our walking, it's our reason for being. So maybe you have some thoughts about integrity and or whatever. I think we are very challenged today to live well, each of us. The turmoil, whatever turmoil is in the world comes back to us. It isn't as though we can live without feeling the sense of the turmoil in our own country right now. It is there. And so we don't get away with it. The question, we don't get away from it necessarily. The question is to exercise the awakening of our Zazen practice, the integrity of responding to Zazen, of the call to Zazen, to respond to the call to be awake in the course of the day. And, I have no idea how the world is going to go. I have no idea. But we should have some sense about our own lives, about a kind of a settledness, not a restive, but a settledness within ourselves, or the sense of purpose of living out that integrity, a sense of we're not going to give it away, that we will not sacrifice our own spiritual selves.
My question surrounds this idea of feeling other people's lack of integrity. And how, through the course of our lives, we come in contact with people in immense suffering who live in a state of minimal integrity. And to just feel that, and just to be immersed in that, or the kinds of cultures and situations that can transpire due to this. I guess I don't quite understand how one meets that, how one feels someone else's suffering and their worry, and still somehow remain detached at the same time.
Don't think I said detached.
But that limit to hold integrity in the midst of suffering.
Integrity in suffering could be to truly enter the suffering. To meet it completely, wholeheartedly and fully. And, to some other degree, depending upon the situation or what other people's lack of integrity is none of our business. We're all at a different place. And we're all at a particular moment when we exercise it or don't exercise it. So we don't see other people, 24 hours a day. Probably not. So they may not have, you may see them at a given moment, and consider that there's some lack of integrity there, but it's not our business, really. It's just that moment. And our moment is to have the integrity to honor the suffering and witness it, and hold it, and enter it. So we suffer a lot for other people's suffering. But whether, I think we have to be careful about not judging, because that might be a judgment issue on somebody, that person doesn't have much integrity, or they could do better, they're not exercising. That's a kind of a judgment. So we have to be a little bit careful about that. We're all at different places. But, once again, when it's time to laugh, we laugh completely. When it's time to cry, we cry completely. When it's time to suffer, we suffer completely. Whatever it is, we do it. And that is also the sense of completeness and the sense of integrity in us. There was nothing left over. We could think about it as there's nothing left over. We wholeheartedly are there.
I guess I still have this notion that there shouldn't be suffering.
We just chanted it tonight. There's no end. There is no suffering, and there's also no extinction of it. If we didn't have suffering, we wouldn't learn. We wouldn't have anything to do. There'd be no learning. It is the basis for awakening. It is. It's the groundwork of awakening. Almost everybody in this place could raise their hand and say they came here because they suffered. Almost everybody would raise their hand. So because we suffer, we come to see, to awaken. So it's the groundwork. Dogen Zenji had that koan, or that idea. If I am really awakened, if I am truly awakened, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to sit on the cushion like this? Which is, for some people, a kind of suffering. Their knees are aching and they're just, so difficult to sit here. Why, if I am awakened, why must I do this? Until he saw that what he was doing was actually awakening. So we suffer into awakening in a sense. And you don't want to give it away. You don't want to not have suffering in the world, however difficult it is. There are times when we suffer more. The world is in very bad shape right now, it seems to me. Which 20th century was the bloodiest, most wicked century in history, I do believe. I think we killed off more people in wars and so forth than any other century. 6 wars I have lived through now. Not counting all those that the United States didn't participate in. Hundreds of wars going on. But 6 that the United States participated in. And, it just becomes a way of life. And I think it's not over yet. I'm not ready to die yet. And I think the wars aren't over either. But then, as I remind folks, the first murder occurred in the first book of Genesis. And that is the book. So we have known that kind of suffering from the beginning.
I've always thought about integrity. I think as you defined it initially, a person who in their thought thoughts and speech and actions are consistent. There's a consistency to that. And it allows us to say, oh, I know that person. I can trust that person. And yet, you said something which made me think that kind of integrity is very self-bound. And you mentioned integrity arising out of the absolute. And but I guess I understand that to mean that's an integrity that arises out of our waking up from the dream of a self and being that integrity. And which then takes us back to this cushion.
And, we can't mistake integrity for stubbornness. Because a person says, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing that. Sorry. We have to really understand that we might still not know them.
Yeah. I mean, the former kind of integrity that I'm thinking about, the liberal and the conservative can both express that in their way.
Yes.
And the stubbornness you mentioned is perhaps why the headbutting occurs, and there is no dialogue.
Yeah. Well, it's a question of the consciousness and the care of our society, and how, whether we can create a movement in our government that is, essentially like the caring ruler in Confucianism, the benevolent ruler in Confucianism, who bestows upon the subjects, which I don't really mean as subjects, bestows upon the people the goodness that the people need, so that their lives benefit. I mean, we all want to create a government such that the people benefit, their lives are benefited from it, rather than withholding, especially when we have so much. So it's a difficult thing, because people get caught in how they feel government should be. And so we get caught in it too, because I feel that's my thought of government. The government is a benevolent force on behalf of the people to bestow goodness upon the people, and particularly a civilized society cares for those in need and does not withhold from them, as in our own precepts. We don't withhold the teachings or the Dharma or the goods. We don't withhold those. And a good government doesn't do that either. And that's all we hope for. But other people see government as something different. Good government protects the people with, keeping the air clean and the water so that we can all drink it, and cares for the future, cares for the children of the future, so that we don't leave a planet that is so besotted with our own nasty footprints that they have something. But, I fear that my own grandchildren are going to do the cleanup. They're going to spend their lives, at least my grandson feels. They thought that they were going to bring progress and that they were going to do so many interesting, exciting things. And he sees it now as just young people will do cleanup for their whole lives, if we are not careful, if we do stupid things, which we might do. Rather disappointing, but so. But our point of practice must not succumb to the enticement of somebody else's greed or somebody else's anger and ignorance. This is our job. This is the job of one's own integrity, is to not throw away one's awakened life. And as we are studying right action, my friends, I haven't the vaguest idea. Except the action of integrity, which fortifies us and nurtures the soul, nurtures the our strength and our ability to be able to stand back when we need to, or to just go forward into the fray when we need to, without fear that we would be demolished. Both actions are appropriate, all depending. Don't know until you meet it. You don't know. You don't know what the last breath is like until you meet it. But do think about that. Don't disappoint yourself. So back to Kondo Roshi, who used that way. When we don't, when we miss an action, or we have the possibility to take care of ourselves, when we don't do it, we disappoint ourselves. So don't disappoint yourself. Don't disappoint yourself. Take up that brush when the urge to call. Sit on the cushion when there's the urge to sit. Write that poem when the poem comes. You'll never get it back again. If you don't write it down that moment, you won't get it back. All of these things.